All right. Welcome, everybody, to the City Commission meeting of October 11th, 2022. I call this meeting to order. Val, can you please call the roll?
Commissioner Penny?
Here.
Commissioner Curry?
Here.
Commissioner Danio?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson? Mayor Villa?
Here. And at this time, I'll ask everybody to silence your cell phones if you have a cell phone on you. And I will ask everybody to please stand for the invocation led by Commissioner John Penny and continue standing afterwards for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Will you pray with me? Dear gracious God, we thank you for another beautiful day. Please comfort those that are dealing with loss and damage from Hurricane Ian. We thank you for all of our team members that worked countless hours during the storm to make sure that we were safe. Please protect the linemen, first responders, and the people dealing with debris removal. We pray they all return to their homes safely. We thank you for the ability to meet freely and discuss the business of our city of Holly Hill. Please grant us wisdom as we make decisions this evening. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Vice Mayor. We will go to number 2 on our agenda, which is public comments. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the commission about anything not on our regular agenda? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, folks. Dawn Boland, 1716 Center Avenue. Hope you all survived the storm okay with regards to your properties. The reason I'm here tonight, I'd like to bring your attention to something that took place on Saturday evening after the hurricane. And it has to do with the FPL line, the lines that they had, the contract that they had for the lines from the golf course to Mason Avenue months and months ago. At that time, when they put in the telephone pole, they cut the secondary telephone pole due to the fact that the cable and the spectrum lines were attached to it. Prior to the hurricane, or tropical storm, whatever we want to address it as, FPL guys were out to the property located between Eagle and Peacock looking at the telephone lines, and they decided and determined that Spectrum and the AT&T would have to be contacted due to the size of the lines. The reason I'm bringing this to your attention is that on Saturday evening, even though the FPL was there right before the storm, the guys were out there looking at this pole like, what are we supposed to be doing out here? The inspector went ahead and told them, even though there was houses still without power and things of that nature, that they were to go address this situation, which is not impacting the residents. The power had been restored on the east side of Center with regards to it's the poles that are in between Peacock and Eagle that run between those properties. And so with regards to the situation, they spent 2.5, 3 hours. Maybe they needed downtime, and it's like, I made sure they were okay and wanted to find out what they were there for. But as far as that is concerned, the reason I'm bringing this to your attention is whether or not it has to do with the old contract or old agreement with FPL or a current agreement. They could not do anything with these lines because, like I said previously, the lines have to be extended by Spectrum and or AT&T in order to reposition the lines to the new pole that was put in months ago to eliminate that secondary pole. So I wasn't certain. I wasn't, whether or not it had to do with an old agreement or a new agreement with FPL, so I figured I'd let you know.
Okay. Thank you very much,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Boland. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak to the City Commission about anything not on our regular agenda? Seeing none, I'll close public comments. Mr. Forte, are you familiar with?
Well, I'm not familiar specifically with that, but she's absolutely right, and that occurs even on our US 1. If you remember when we were doing the underground, we said once FPL gets off the pole and they top it, if there are other utilities on it, they required the other utilities to remove the pole. So while FPL may have relocated their wires, if Spectrum or AT&T or Bright House or any other providers on that pole, it's no longer an FPL issue. She's right, except there's nothing that we as the city can do about it. That's between the utility companies.
And until they get off of the old pole and put it on.
No areas, even where I live, there are 3 poles.
Yeah.
in the ground because they haven't taken everything off yet.
And we still have it on US 1.
Yeah, so she's accurate in what she's saying, but there's nothing that the city can do about it.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
The reason I brought that up is because the inspector for FPL instructed the line guys to go to that, to rectify that.
Well,
And my,
and Ms. Bullitt, since we're on record, we'll talk about it right afterwards, okay? This should be a short meeting. I'll talk, I know you left me a voicemail, and I forgot to call you back on Monday, so I apologize. All right, so we will move to our approval of the minutes. We have no minutes, so we will move to the consent agenda. We have one item on the consent agenda. Would anybody like to remove that item? All right, we'll open this up to the public. Does anybody want to speak about anything on our consent agenda tonight? Seeing none, I'll close public participation. I'll entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion for approval of the consent agenda from Commissioner Johnson and a second from Commissioner Danio. No discussion is required. All those that are in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Now moving to our regular agenda. Number one on our regular agenda is Resolution 2022-R-80. Mr. Simpson?
Resolution number 2022-R-80 by title only for first and only reading. A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Holly Hill, Florida, authorizing the city manager to execute the Second Amendment to the management agreement with Pictona at Holly Hill, providing for severability and providing for an effective.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. Mr. Forte?
I didn't want to push this off again another meeting. I did meet with Reiner and Rick yesterday and went over some of the items that need clarification. Some of them were typographical. Some of the things like we didn't need to put in that they required a site plan or a permit for their tournaments. Another was we had to clarify the cleaning, which actually that language stayed the same. They wanted to add a sentence in there that Pictona would be responsible for the concessions, food and drink services, both purchasing of and the profits from that, which we had agreed to. We just put it in the contract. So I wanted to at least get this in front of you and get it approved so that we can move forward and give Rick direction to deal with these other promoters.
Thank you, Mr. Forte.
So this one that you have has been updated in the agenda item with those changes.
Yep, and we have it in front of us here, too.
Right.
I know that you and I went over some changes yesterday that I wanted. Those are all reflected.
I'm pretty sure I got them.
Were there any other changes that you made other than what we talked about yesterday?
Yeah, just what I just said.
Okay.
We obviously, we changed the date. We
Yeah.
added community gatherings. I put the language in there with regard to the food and drink service. I put language in there where we have the sole discretion to replace the equipment.
Good. Okay.
I'm pretty sure I captured all of it, and if there's something that may be missing,
Yeah. And just so the commission's aware, I asked Mr. Forte to add in under number 1, presentations, community gatherings, such as maybe the state of the city, or maybe if someday down the line we want to do an Easter event or even a Halloween event, whatever kind of event, I just want that to be reflected, so that shouldn't be a problem. Are there any questions about the amendment to the pickleball management agreement? Okay. With that, we'll open this up to the public. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this item tonight? Did you raise your hand, Gillis? Were you raising your hand? No? Okay. All right, seeing none, we will close public participation. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
We have a motion for approval from Vice Mayor Penny and a second from Commissioner Johnson. Any discussion needed? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Now moving to number 2, which is Resolution 2022-R-84. Mr. Simpson.
Resolution 2022-R-84 by title only for first and only reading. A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Holly Hill, Florida, extending the current local state of emergency for another 7 days, providing for severability and providing for an effective date.
Mr. Forte.
we can go ahead and do this tonight, but we really don't need to do it anymore. We're now under the county state of emergency for the rest of the cleanup. This initially was to allow me to modify schedules. We can deviate from union contracts, bring in for overtime, purchase outside the purchasing policy. So that immediate need is no longer in place. So you can go ahead and approve it tonight we probably won't be bringing it back again.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Forte. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll ask the audience, is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment on this item tonight? Seeing none, I'll close public participation, and I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Curry and a second from Commissioner Danio. Any discussion needed? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Now we're going to move to communications. Mr. Forte.
I'm going to ask Antoine to come up and just give you an update of where we are with regards to the follow-up from the storm.
Great.
And I might have some more to add, or we'll answer any questions that the commission may have.
Perfect, thank you. Will he know about the debris pickup? Is he
You
the-
should, and if not, I do.
Okay. All right, thank you, Ms. Curry. The floor is yours.
Antoine Corey, Public Works. Just a brief update on where we are here in the city. On the streets, currently, we cannot purchase any pavement, any pavement from any vendor. Halifax and PNS are not selling it to the public, so you'll see some potholes that have been around for a couple of months now that we haven't been able to acquire asphalt, basically. The Riverside repair that we did,
Excuse me, is there a shortage on that?
no, they're working, but they have their own projects that,
Oh,
I think PNS is paving I-4? Yeah,
Yeah.
I-4.
yeah.
And 95 too. Halifax is doing 95, I think. So they're only, they're worrying about them,
Yeah.
their big projects, so. Martha is shut down. We had a pipe that collapsed down there, and we dug it up. It's too deep. We have to hire a contractor to dig it up. It's a 30-inch stormwater pipe. That's CMP, or corrugated metal pipe, which in Florida doesn't last too long. The estimated debris that we started with after the storm was 15 to 20,000 cubic yards. I think that number has went up over the weekend. A lot of people put out a lot of debris. So we're now looking at probably 25 to 30,000 cubic yards. The problem also is some people are piling up high enough that it's interfering with line of sight, and we are addressing it as best as we can by moving some of that debris. Can you pull up that map? Oh, it's already there.
How high is too high, Antoine?
It's actually, you should be around less than where you're sitting in your car seat and your eyesight should be able to see it.
Okay.
So within about 3
feet.
3.5 feet, 3 feet basically. So, can you zoom out a little bit? Just, no, you don't, just with your mouse, no. Bigger. Well, that's where most of the debris has been collected within the city. Walker is almost done. Flomish is almost done, sorry. Walker and Center, which is our top priorities, are having problems because of, not problems, but they're not being, the contractor is not being able to complete those roads because of the schedule. In the morning, traffic, and in the afternoon, traffic, so they go do other things. So that's why some of those side streets on Walker, Jireki, and all that stuff has been completed. Since Monday, right now, they've collected on Monday 2,441 cubic yards of yard waste. We have 3 trucks, and we'll get a report today, probably in the first thing in the morning, I would assume the same amount has been collected, so it will be about 5,000 cubic yards that has been collected. In water, there's no issues with our water. The plant is operating at capacity, not capacity, but the needed volume to serve the city. On wastewater, since the storm, which is on September 29th to October 7th, the wastewater plant has been averaging treating of 6 million gallons a day. It puts a demand on our chemicals, and typically we spend about 200 pounds of chlorine. We were spending about 500 to 600 pounds of chlorine. Luckily, we were able to get a load in before we ran out, because if we run out, we shut down. So it's not an option. Since October 7th, our averages has gone down to 4.5 to 4.2 million gallons a day. We're still surcharged, but a little bit better. And the lift stations are all back to normal level, no overflows, no seepage out of any manholes.
Is lift station 11 still doing a pump around?
Nope. We shut it down yesterday. We shut it down. It's back to normal levels. So, and everything leading to 11, which I'll show you
16, 20,
when we sit down. All of them are back to normal and operating at what they need to be. I wrote something. Oh no, this is something else. Okay. We are fully crewed, but we are so backed up on work orders. We have Sean is working basically 12 hours a day because we need on-site supervision, and he's dedicating most of the day there. And it's going to be a busy few months. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
What is our average gallons? You said we're at 4.5 million. We were at 6 million right after the storm. What's the average?
Average?
Yeah, usually.
For annual base, we're about 1.8 to 1.9 million gallons a day.
So we're still way above that. Wow.
I thought you told us it was 4.
No, 3.
It's 4 right now.
Capacity of the plant is 3 million gallons a day. But when we're treating 6 million, the amount that you treat is not as saturated with waste. So you mostly, because it's mostly water, it's
Right.
Storm water. So we can operate at 6 million and still be within our DEP permit.
Wow. All right. Yeah, Vice Mayor.
A couple suggestions were brought to me today with Bike Week coming up, and the main thoroughfare being Riverside Drive and US 1. Can we direct the debris people?
The US 1 and Nova Road are done by the DOT.
Okay,
So we don't do that.
okay.
And
But I
then
think he said Riverside.
And Riverside
Riverside
Drive,
Drive, we try not to dictate the means and methods, and I know there's concerns about bikers,
right.
but Ridgewood, we try to.
Riverside Drive?
Riverside Drive is a 25-mile-an-hour road. We're
No one
trying to.
goes 25 on that road.
Okay.
That's what it is.
And on
Taking
Riverside
Steve
Drive,
Smith's position. But our priority, and I don't know are they working on the weekend, the haulers?
Yes.
We should try to direct them to get Center Avenue done on the weekend when the school's
That's-
closed and make sure that's my number one priority.
Okay.
is the
Kids.
school kids.
no,
Because
makes
the
sense.
kids-
I just-
Center, Flomish,
Right.
15th, and
Yeah, the school route.
Yeah, they did Flomish today. I saw them.
And one other obstacle for bikers was brought to me, Flomish and Riverside Drive, where we have that patch,
Yeah.
it's a bump.
Yeah.
And if a biker hits that, can we put cones or some kind of caution thing? Because I hate to see a biker get hurt in our city during
Yeah.
Bike Week.
We
And
might be able to call that out.
we're actually, this morning, we filled it up, but it's,
Yeah.
because the ground is so saturated with water, you cannot compact it.
Right.
So we let cars go and we'll fill it up again tomorrow, we'll keep filling it.
Can we maybe put cones on each side and one in the
Sure.
center just to call out the dip?
I mean, as a caution?
Yeah, yeah.
Sure.
That's just a temporary fix for now, right? Until
Yes,
we can
okay.
get them
that's
out to.
millings. We
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't get asphalt, like
Yeah.
I said, so. And it keeps, the more you have traffic on it, the more it's compacting, so that means it's still sinking.
It's wet.
So we patched it, it's gonna sink again, so we'll wait.
That's one, then, if you're saying we can't get asphalt millings, what about somebody like Legary? How do?
No,
No, I was just say, how do they get them? Where are they getting them from?
who's,
Like Jim Legary's
Gary,
company.
that's his business.
But I mean, we can't,
But he doesn't have an asphalt plant.
he doesn't
No.
have, you have to buy it from a plant.
He's not getting it either.
He's-
oh, he's not? Okay.
Well,
That's-
I don't know if he's getting it or not, but he's a, I mean, that's his job, so he's got, like, I don't know if it's a wholesale deal or whatever, but he's got to be getting it from somewhere. I don't think he's shut down. You think he's shut?
I think they'd give it to us before they give it to him. We're a bigger customer
A
than
little
he
bit
is.
both.
Well, that's what I was wondering, if the city can't get it, I mean,
All we know is, we go to the plant and they say, we're not selling it, or we call them and said, we're not selling to the public, so.
Scott called him.
I do know there's a supply issue. The aggregate material coming out of Georgia and stuff is an issue. I've heard that.
All right.
They're on allotments.
Are there any
Giving them, their projects a priority, so.
Are there any further questions?
Amazon's screwing up all the concrete too, is what I've
Yes,
heard.
yes,
Amazon-
yes.
They've somehow cornered the market on their facility out there. That they,
Amazon will be delivering asphalt soon.
they got, so whatever they're doing, they've done something where they're
Probably.
Yeah,
picking
the
them
next
well in
day.
advance or whatever it is, they got all the concrete.
Wow.
One final question. I know that initially we talked about doing multiple trips for debris if needed, and I think it's going to be needed. Is that going
Do
to
two
happen?
passes.
All right, 2 passes? Okay.
We'll do an initial pass, and by the time they're done, typically what happens is people see the truck come and they go, "Oh, I missed it."
Yeah.
And they try to get the stuff out, and we do a second pass. After the second pass, then there's no more.
Right, okay. It's just, my front yard, I talked to you about it, I only have so much front yard and all of the tree debris is there and I don't want to stack it higher than 3 feet. But my back garage flooded out and I have, cabinets in there that I have to put out as well. So I can't put those out now, so that's second. I know there's probably a lot of people like that, so.
Joe, are we taking stuff to the middle school property?
Yes.
Or staging
The
it there?
1200 Center.
Are they gonna grind it there like they did in the past?
Good. All right. Are there any further questions? All right. Seeing none, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Mr. Forte, floor is yours.
Let's see. So no other questions on the follow-up from the storm. I sent an email up to Steve, and we're going to talk about it tomorrow, to see if I can bring in temporary help to help us with what we're doing. The problem is the temporary help has to work 100% on storm-related items, and that's not really what we need. We need help on all of our other work order items, and we wouldn't be reimbursed for it. So if you remember years ago, we'd actually hired Chuck
Yeah.
Bruce. He was a temp that came in during the storms, and he worked with Marty just on storm items for city properties. And then we ended up hiring him when a position opened up. So we're looking into that, but I don't know if we have enough to hire a temp that's not specialized. I can't send a temp out there with a chainsaw and a bucket truck, you know what I'm saying? So it's going to be a little difficult, but we are looking into that. We are having the Halloween event on Friday, October 28th, from 5 to 10. This is the Lizette and her arts and crafts folks will be here. They'll start setting up at about 1 o'clock. The crafters will have candy for the kids that come, but they'll also have crafts, they'll have food trucks, they'll have bounce houses. It's going to be a little bit elevated. It's the first time we're doing it, so we'll see how it works out, and hopefully it'll be a great event.
Joe, Shouldn't they add arts and crafts on this thing? You have no idea that there's any arts
What
or
does it
crafts.
say?
It
I think it just says vendors or something.
says
Is-
food trucks, vendors, games, bounce house, DJ Rob, face painting, costume contest, and more.
I think the vendors is what the crafts are. There,
I know, but I wouldn't come to I might come to it if I knew it was a craft show, but I wouldn't come to it if I just knew what they're doing, face painting.
well, I think the kids are coming for the candy.
I know, but you wanted the parents to come and spend money with these craft show.
Well, kids are coming with their parents,
I'm just saying.
but hey, it's not my money.
Okay.
So they have an enormous following.
Okay.
So their following follows them to wherever they go. So we'll see how this works, but, it's their thing, and we'll let them do their thing. Just remind you of the business of the, not the business, but the citizen of the year that you have to be thinking about now before we get to be too late. And I think that's all that I have.
If any staff members know of anyone specifically doing a lot for the community during, especially during this time, during the storm, if you could relay that to us, we'll take that into consideration as well. So I know there were a lot of people going out and doing a lot of stuff, and some of those people that deserve that credit, they're not the first ones to raise their hand. They don't post it on Facebook. So if someone knows of somebody going above and beyond, please let me know, let the commissioners know, so we can take them into consideration for recognizing them. All right, is that it, Mr. Forte?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
No comments.
All right. Mrs. Manning? All right. IT? No. All right. So I had a conversation today with a resident that brought up concerns that I believe are true concerns about telecommunications, about they were worried about how they could not communicate during.
Talk to Mrs. Legary.
Yeah.
She called me yesterday.
Talk to her too. Yeah. But she has a good point that and she knows that we don't control AT&T or Spectrum or any of that, but they were down for a long time. I know my cell service was down. I know that
I have T-Mobile and I couldn't use mine.
really, and if the storm was worse, if there was higher winds, then it could have been worse. I'm sure that it had to do with the towers. But I told her that in my talks with the county at the next mayor's roundtable, I'd bring it up as a concern that hopefully we can, as they're replacing this stuff, hopefully they can somehow harden it. But I just wanted to bring up that conversation. The other conversation some of you may or may not have seen that went out today. It was kind of a large post. It was about a house on my street, which is, it's a hoarder that lives there, has done it for 20 years, Anniston Avenue. If you've ever driven down my street, you'll see it. That's probably my number one complaint. Anytime I'm walking my dog or anything, all of my neighbors say, what about this house? And I told them the same thing over and over. Now, the city has done everything that we can do, meaning code enforcement has cited them over and over. There is a gigantic lien already on the property. A couple years ago, Mr. Forte looked into it, even went down and talked to the lady and asked her, can we please clean this up somehow? And she had told him at that time it wasn't that bad. And honestly, if you haven't seen it, drive down my street, take a look. She now no longer has a spot for her car to park in the front yard. So she puts out a cone, so that way people don't hit her car because the nose is sticking out. I haven't talked to the chief about that yet. I don't know the legality of that, parking on the road and putting out a cone. But it's a major concern, and there's really not much more we can do other than speaking briefly tonight with Mr. Simpson about it. The next step would have to be a court decision. It's Mr. Forte and Mr. Walker told me in Seminole County there was a similar thing that happened with that. I don't know if you want to elaborate.
That person actually ended up going to jail over it as well for violations. Scott just sent me the email again, so we'll take a look at that and see what it would take to go the route of a court order to have the court authorize us to go onto the property and remove the debris, the junk.
I think the court case in Seminole County dealt with the Florida litter law. and which is actually a crime. So through being involved with the state attorney's office.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to bring it to the commission's attention. We can't talk about anything other than, up here in the sunshine, so just wanted you to let you know, and I'm going to ask that staff looks
And I did
more
see
into it. But I want to be clear too, I'm not looking, and I don't want the city we're not looking to kick this person out. I think that, it's an illness, to hoard, and I'm sure she doesn't like the way that it looks. But if we can do something about it, I want to, but I don't want to put someone out on the street. That's a slippery slope. But I do want some options if we can make that property come into
Just for
compliance.
the record, Mayor, we were looking at this property before you were the mayor.
Yeah,
So-
someone told me it was 20 years. Someone lived there
Been a
across
while.
the street 20 years ago, and that's when they started doing it, but it wasn't as bad then, so, yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of people have the misunderstanding of code enforcement, and they don't realize the city's hands are tied a lot of the times when we do get to a certain point. Legally, we can't do anymore. We can't just go on somebody's property,
Not without a court
take
order.
their property. I mean, think about it. Would you want somebody coming onto your property and taking something from there because they felt it was offensive? So I totally agree with that and get that, but yeah, if we could have options, I agree.
And I agree with you. Property rights are paramount to me, and the government shouldn't be able to so easily come in and do this thing. So I completely agree. I'm not arguing that, but I do know that I've had complaints about rats and snakes. And when does it become a health issue?
When's it a life safety issue?
And when is it a life safety issue? And as well as directly next door to it, I mean, there's a house that they take such wonderful care of. And me being a realtor, I know that value of that house is plummeting down from what it could be if it was just a normal, code compliant
I'd
house.
be interested in seeing options
Okay.
as well.
And that's all I have tonight, so thank you. Tonight, we're going to start with you, Mrs. Curry.
Thank you, and I really don't have much of anything. I'm glad to see those of you that are here, and you appear to hopefully have weathered the storm well. Hopefully didn't have too much damage or personal injury. And I hope everybody up here was safe for the most part. And I couldn't get any text out to ask anybody how they were doing. It was very frustrating.
Tried.
It really was. Yes, I tried.
I know you did.
It was really frustrating to not be able to use a simple text to check on people. And I know we really don't have a lot to say over that either, but if you could mention it, that'd be great, because you never know. That's all I have. You guys have a good night.
Thank you. Commissioner Day?
It's, I hate to use the word sad, but we've become so dependent on our technology and our toys that without it, and you guys laugh at me because I don't know what face
Yeah.
stuff is, whatever. See, I didn't miss a beat.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
were fine.
No, I'm just glad everybody, I mean, we could have been a whole lot worse, man. I feel bad for those poor people on the West Coast. It just breaks my heart, but it is what it is, but that's all I have.
All right.
We got to get Commissioner Johnson to his grandson's ball game.
All right, so don't monologue, Commissioner Johnson. What do we got tonight?
Oh, I was just gonna bring up too, and I'm sure Brian and Joe is well aware, there's a house on Ridge, and I think it's around 1640, is it, Brian?
Yes, it's a well-known
That
house.
is horrible.
Oh, yeah, yes,
Nothing-
yes.
Nothing further can be done about it.
Yep.
Not as bad as Aniston, but it's,
Yeah, it is bad.
I think the storm helped it over there.
Me stealing candy?
Well,
We'll leave some of the shrubbery and things in there.
and speaking of 1640, right next door to it, 1642, I want to thank Mrs. Manning. She received a call about the property. It was an elderly woman who was very distraught. She didn't have her power back until Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday, and she called on and was very upset. And she lost her husband a couple years ago and didn't know what to do. And I believe the chief, did you go out and visit her? I know someone. Okay, Sergeant did. Thank you your officers for doing that, to check in on her. And I checked in on her a couple times and lifted her spirits, but she was very thankful to you and our police officers. So thank you very much for looking after them. Is that all, Mr. Johnson?
Another thing, if someone else around here would have an interest in getting in the hydraulic business, they could make a fortune off of those trucks that are picking up all that debris. Because they call me all the time, every time a cylinder breaks or a plate breaks. And I just don't have time for it anymore.
Wow.
In Central Hydraulics, it's so backed up all the time. There's nobody else that does it. So my company and their company does it.
Need to hire a couple mechanics.
When that truck breaks, it just holds up everything.
Yeah.
There's so many of them up there in Orland on them side streets, you don't see it. They're breaking down all the time with hydraulic hoses and so on. There's nobody, hydraulic supply used to be here, but they finally left. Couldn't get the business, I guess, or something. I don't know, that'd be good. I think it'd be a good business for somebody to have interest in. Hydraulic business around here because there's plenty of it. And the only other thing is that my little grandson does have a baseball game tonight. As soon as I meet him, I'll get up there to see him. He's doing pretty good.
There you go. All right. Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Yep, Vice Mayor.
I'm going to bring something up. Don't really want to discuss it, but we need to work on it. It's probably going to take Joe and Scott and Brian a lot of research to tackle this short-term rentals. I know we can't control where they go or when they go, but there are some properties that I'm getting constant phone calls about that are the one on 8th Street and Riverside Drive. There was no less than 30 pickup trucks there this weekend. Police responded. I think the owner actually asked the tenants to leave, but it's constantly there. And there has to be something in place that if it was a business or a residence that had continuous calls, the nuisance abatement, I think is what it is. And we don't have any tool like that. And I don't know if we can legally have a tool like that, but I think we got to figure out something to spank these landlords. We can't stop them from doing it, but they need to do better background checks, because I've rented them before, and you don't just rent it. They check you, and they have to approve you. And I think they're just approving anything to get the money in there, and then 2 people sign the lease, and 50 show up. I don't know what we can do about it, but I'm getting lots of calls. I don't know if you're getting calls about it. There's a lot more of these things in our city than I ever thought there were. And so I don't know if we can revoke their business license. I don't know what we can do. But I think I would like to see staff research what other cities are doing, what we can legally do about it, have a workshop in a later date about it, because I think it's just going to get worse.
Were we allowed to do that, to have somebody just build a place in their backyard and rent it out short-term rental?
So right now, the state prohibits us from passing new laws to prevent short-term rentals. So I know
We
that
can't
it's been
prevent them, but
hot.
we should be able to control how they behave.
Right.
If there's anything that can be done, Ponce Inlet is doing it because of Lois.
Well, Ponce Inlet has laws,
Dig into that.
they've had laws in effect for 15 years,
Oh, okay.
so
Yeah.
they're already ahead of it.
Yeah.
So we can't impose any new laws.
Right, okay.
But I
But
believe they're still having some problems. Somehow they snuck some in, I believe, because she was up there
Yeah.
lobbying for some of
Yeah,
this
So-
relaxing. She may be good to talk to, one-on-one, if you guys see her. She knows a lot about it as well, but if staff could take a look at it and let us know, and if there is something that we could look into doing, then I'm open to having a workshop.
I mean,
on it.
they're just, it's spring break. I mean, you got 50, 20-something-year-old kids there with giant pickup trucks, drunk and hooting and hollering, and it's like spring break. And it happens more often than not.
I'd be interested.
I'm just glad it's not in my backyard.
And I'm in favor of Airbnbs and that we allow them. We are kind of unique in that way. But you're right that shouldn't mean that it's a free-for-all. And so if there's some levers that we can control, because if you're living next door to it and it's all they're on vacation, those people,
Right.
and so if they're out in the pool all night, making noise and whatnot, it might not be too good. So I'm willing to look into it if there are some levers that we could look at. Is that all?
That's it.
All right. Anything else? Any further business? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.